You must be at least 18 years of age to listen to the following podcast. I am Robert Black, and you are listening to Sexual Heroes. My guest is Pup Kona, a French Bulldog and Leather pup currently residing in Washington State. A two-time Pantheon of Leather award recipient, he served as the International Pup and Trainer Contest International Puppy 2015 and Northwest Puppy 2015 title holder. He is the International Pup and Handler Contest producer and International Pup and Handler Weekend co-founder and co-producer, and he's the co-owner and co-founder of Scrapyard Leather, which makes custom pet hoods, apparel, and other products. And last on this particular long list of accomplishments, Pup Kona is also the founder of Pups and Handlers Without Borders, PAHs, an organization which focuses on promoting mentorship, support, and conversations between pups and handlers all around the world. Pup Kona, thank you for being on Sexual Heroes today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
The pup scene has really exploded. And it seems like it happened overnight. I'm sure it didn't, but it's really just everywhere. Can you talk a little bit about what that scene is all about, why you think it's so popular?
I mean, it is interesting when you think about it because I agree. In some cases, for some people, it's like it just kind of popped out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden you see it. Like, I don't know if you've seen, but there's even situations where one of the pups in Britain was even in a commercial, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. No, for real, for a major company, too.
Huh.
And it just, people are like, whoa, where did this come from? And there was documentaries prior that actually kind of touched on it with like Mistress Lillian and Tyke. Years later, the one with Pup Spot from Europe, which definitely was the one that kind of grabbed a lot of attention. So historically, actually, interesting enough, talking about it as we move on to exactly a little bit about the scene, is that it actually, there is no known origin story of how the first pup drill happened, but a lot of people are unaware of that after World War II and with the rise of the leather scene, there was a situation where punishment was given in that type of DS relationship to some people. And essentially within that type of dynamic, there was just a person who was like, you're going to be a dog and you're going to bark and I'm your like sir or master or like, owner or dom, and you're going to listen. And eventually they're like, yo, I actually like this and I'm going to be a brat about it. And and essentially from the leather community, it actually bore the pup community. It actually grew from that. And I'm talking specifically North America has the more heavier story that I know of. Of course, later on in places like Australia and Europe, the pup scene grew dynamically a little bit different, but the major part where it started coming from came from that area. And then, as you said, it just exploded, and now it is its own entity, essentially.
In researching this and just stumbling across different sites, there is sort of a part of the pup community, though, that I get a sense anyway, that they don't really identify with the BDSM leather community.
Yeah. And, honestly, I would very much say that is correct at this point. The thing is, and this has actually happened even more so recently, as communities in general, and now we can talk about like people who go to anime cons, people who are in BDSM, people who are sci-fi, like people who are furries. Eventually there's a point in time where they grow to such a point where their identity is so broad and so far reaching, and everyone has a different take on how they do pup play and what it means to them, that they become something completely different. And that's the biggest thing. What makes puppy so great is that puppy is what you make of it, and it doesn't have a direct like manual on how you do things. So yes, it started in the bars, it started with the leather community, it started that thing. And then over time, it's like we have conventions, we have get-togethers, we have paw groups, and then we grew in so big that we actually now are our own thing. And we have leather pups now, rubber pups, neoprene pups, gear pups, people who are in like in the DS race, people who are completely not sexual, people who are all sexual, people who just like to mosh. And everything in far in between.
One of the things that intrigues me about the pup scene is that's very different from your typical BDSM scene is that pups, who are generally the submissive, have so much camaraderie, so much bonding, they play together. But in the typical BDSM event or play space, it's more about doms connecting with subs.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, so one clarifying factor, I guess, on that statement is that pup in general, in that sense, yes, in some of those DS relationships or BDSM relationships, you are correct in that, some people try to find that type of camaraderie or contract or that type of dynamic. Being a puppy in no way, shape, or form actually means that you are a submissive or you are a submissive person. I'm a puppy, but I am like anything but submissive. I'm completely the opposite. Yeah, like I have a sir, I have a pack. I am the alpha of that pack, and I do have 5 puppies, but I am no way submissive in general. I could bottom from the top given the situation if we're talking on the more let's have fun thing, and that's even outside of puppy. But generally, I'm a very independent person. I'm very confident in a more of a this is how I want it to be type of person. And I don't really identify with someone telling me, hey, pup, you're going to do this and that. It doesn't really jive in my mind, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's a lot of pups like that, like a lot. Some people think because pup or if the pup letter is written as the lowercase, you would think even in the DS dynamic, sir is capital S or sub or boy is with the lowercase. It doesn't really mean that they're submissive. It's just a generalization. Pup is way too broad a spectrum to put it into one category.
Wow. And pup, correct me if I'm wrong, can include women, transgender folks. They can all play together. It doesn't matter where they're coming from or what their identity is.
That is 100% true. So one of the things that makes the pet and pup community in general is that it's all encompassing. It's completely diverse. It's inclusive. And it doesn't hold anything against anybody, regardless of body, weight, race, gender identification, pronoun, and so forth. So you have playing with BIPOC people, playing with trans people, playing with people from different countries, playing with people that are girls, transgendered, non-binary, men, women, bisexual, gay, straight. It doesn't really matter. I've been to moshes where there's literally all of that on a mosh floor or all that in an event, especially like an event that we that I run every year, and also our local Paul group here in Washington State. We believe in that people that want to be involved in the community are in the core of everything, family, and they have to be treated as such regardless. And there's no discrimination. It is actually completely not tolerated in any capacity.
I love that. Can you talk a little bit about what your play looks like if somebody were watching from the outside?
For me, for play is that I love gear. I think gear is awesome. I think it's beautiful aesthetically. If I was going to a mosh, I would usually put on my pup hood because my pup hood for me is my identity and it helps me get into a deeper space. No different than people have to do certain things to get into a scene. I like my hood. I have a neoprene in my leather one. I have my show tail, which wraps around a belt. And then I put on whatever it is, if it's a t-shirt, if it's a type of like gear or pants. And then my socks. I don't wear any boots. I might wear my paws or stuff that are made of leather. And the reason for these things is for protection, because in play, a lot of people understand that, human beings are not meant to be on all fours in any capacity. So no matter what play you do, pony, puppy, or other, you have to take care of yourself. So I would put the gear on, get in my little headspace type of thing where I'm kind of like just excited to be in that. And then I just go around and I don't know, pretty much maybe just like jump on top of like one of my friends and like they'll just carry me around, or we'll just grab a ball or something and kind of like bat it around. A lot of them like to play fetch. Maybe I'll like sneak around and I'll like see like one of my pack mates or friend there, and I'll kind of like maybe sneak up and like run between their legs and stuff like that and just kind of like jerk them or just jump on top and just like, give them a nuzzle or something. But I tend to like the playful and more affectionate type of thing. I like to do tug of war. I love tug of war. I love playing with the ball, and I love just kind of cuddling up and maybe have a little bit of wrestling, but that's kind of like my play if I'm on the mosh floor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just like in BDSM, it's different for everybody.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of anything. I feel communities thrive when it is all encompassing, if it's inclusive and allows you to do whatever you identify as and what it speaks to you inside.
When I see pups, I want to yell, squirrel.
Yeah,
That's
and you're like, what? You're like, oh my God, yes, totally, all the time. Or if you have a squeaky, you can do that. If you have a bunch of pup arounds, hide it and then start squeaking and see if they start looking at you. That's cute. That's a fun one to do. And maybe you'll get a good like pup to jump up and like try to like pull it out of your hand.
You were talking about gear.
Mm-hmm.
That could kind of intimidate a newbie, couldn't it? Someone who's interested in getting in and wanting to experiment and play, but they don't have all the gear. What would you say to somebody like that?
That's actually a really good question. So generally what we say to people, and we mean this full-heartedly and truly, that gear does not make the pup. Pup is what is inside, mentally, physically, in the heart. It doesn't have to be displayed through type of materialism. So you don't need gear to actually do that. So I usually tell people like, listen, if you don't have gear, that's fine. If that's something you want to do, we can help you maybe like find maybe places that actually have something that could maybe fit your budget and show you what we did that actually gets you that. Sometimes I even let people borrow it. But, in most cases, people at events are usually pretty good about it. And if anything, I don't think it might intimidate them sometimes in the sense that some people feel like they need it, but we tell them very strongly, it's not a necessity. It never has been and it never will be. So don't let that get into your head, because there's tons of pups that I know that are my friends that actually do not like wearing hoods and don't really like that type of heavy gear. They do a more light type of put together of apparel or ensemble.
Maybe even just a collar with a dog tag. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, some people just go like, let's say jock to the collar. I mean, hey, whatever, when in Rome, I guess.
You mentioned sex can sometimes be involved in the play, sometimes not, depending on, who the players are. Would you say the sex is different or how kinky?
Sex with a pup can be just having sex with a person. It doesn't have to like follow this guideline where they move into this weird headspace where they just become this feral entity where you're playing and you kind of act out that scene. And that's no different than like any type of, I've done BDSM scenes before, if it's flogging or if it's doing other types of forms. And, it doesn't always have to play out. Not all of them play out exactly like the one before it. Everyone has a different thing. Generally, the thing is with play is my experience is that some people like to have a little bit of the role play, and some people don't. So I would say it can kind of be it could be everything. It's not something very specific. And honestly, pups don't actually necessarily have to have sex with other pups or handlers, because there's a lot of friends I have dynamically that actually do not, and they have a platonic relationship with their handler or something, if they have a handler, because we know pups don't have to have that as a criteria as well. But they just enjoy the camaraderie and the feeling of someone watching over them and caring for them in a family or chosen family type of feeling, or that type of love, rather than worrying about the sexual part. Mm-hmm. I'm a furry as well. So, I mean, like I have a fursuit. So like, I've seen the whole spectrum. So, and even then there's a lot of furries who don't like having sex in a fursuit, or like to act out some type of scene where they're doing like a written like let's RP or something, and I'm this like coyote guy anthropomorphic thing, like, you know what I mean? Everyone has their levels, but yeah, it can play into it. It's just whatever people want.
We talked about the gear and how that can be intimidating. I've also looked online and seen tons of websites that have all kinds of training and how to be a handler and how to be a pup, with list after list of things to know. But what do you really need to know to get going?
I would say, yes, there's a lot of resources. And I think for me, there's nothing wrong with reading a lot of the resources, because it can be helpful, because it can give you a outside look and understanding of where some of the pup scene community come from, because some of those books and stuff actually have history in it as well. So you might just be curious and want to learn more. But I would say for people starting out, your best thing is to reach out to your local communities. Facebook has a ton of them. There is websites like mine, like Paws Without Borders, for example, and other places that actually kind of give you an idea of what groups are around the area, and just reach out and say like, hey, I'm new. I've been very interested in this. When are your events going on? And I know we're in a COVID situation, so, that might happen until a little bit later, but ask about what's going on, what it's about. You could reach out to your local title holders as well. There's a ton of title holders regionally, locally, and internationally that you could talk to and say, hey, I want to come out to an event. And there is nothing that you need to do or expect from yourself. I've brought friends to events where they literally go to the event and they go to the bar. If it's at a bar setting, they grab a beer and they just sit outside and watch. And then maybe if they feel comfortable, they run over and maybe kind of like grab a toy and be like, hey, puppy, do you want to play fetch? That's what I would suggest. It's knowledge is power and key. It doesn't hurt to ask.
So what I'm hearing is, if any listener out there wants to get going in this, all they need to do is show up.
Yeah, just show up. No expectation. If it's not your thing, after it's not. If it is, it is. But just showing up and just being open-minded and supportive, and consent is always sexy and key, then you're fine. That's really the only things we matter.
You mentioned the Paws Without Borders. Can you just explain that? That's something that you have created?
Yeah. So when I started my title journey, because I was the Northwest Puppy 2015, and then later I became the International IPTC Puppy 2015. When my Northwest title was in Washington, which covers 5 different states, that title, that regional title. I decided an initiative because I felt personally one of the things, and this is like, God, I feel like this is like a little bit way back. So I'm going to say, like, say 4 or 5 years ago, we were still building resources. And I felt, it's great that we have a lot of these resources in some capacity, but there's a lot of communities out there that are still unknown. There's a lot of very small areas and remote places that don't have access to some of the resources or don't know where to look. And I want to be a way for people to find local communities or find a resource where they could go to and ask, hey, is there some group in Germany? Is there some place in like Tokyo? Is there some place in like Northern Iowa? So Paws Without Borders was an initiative to help puppies, especially in smaller communities, as well as large and all large communities, but essentially even the smaller ones as well, to find communities within their area or close by so that they can reach out to them and then learn more. And then, just like I said, be able to show up and hopefully gain some great memories and experiences, connecting with people in our larger LGBTQ IA plus community.
And just to clarify, the PAHs is Pups and Handlers, not paws as in, well.
Yeah. Yes. Paw.
Yeah.
Paw. Yeah, exactly. Like paws, like it changes. Not all groups are named with the paw at the end. Like we have CPAW and VanPaw, which is Vancouver's Pups and Handlers and Seattle's Pups and Handlers. But yes, but the group, even though it says it's Paws Without Borders, it still does encompass the pet community, which means that, a lot of this, even though if it says this is a pup and handlers group, that does not mean that ponies don't go to it or furries don't end up attending, or we have a squirrel that goes, or cats. Like our Seattle group has a squirrel, cats, ponies, furries, and puppies that go, and foxes, and some other stuff that I can't remember.
Okay. I'm learning a lot today.
Mm-hmm.
You said you have held 2 titles. The international one, what is the name of that event and title?
Yeah, so that is called the International Pup and Trainer Contest. It was originated by Packard Cheese, who passed away years later. But he wanted to create an event that allowed puppies just like to grow and have a fun event, but also to be able to become ambassadors of their community. And that started around 2001. So there's a long line that comes before me because mine was 2015. recently it got acquired and works in tangent with IPAH, which is the International Pup and Handler Weekend. Within that title eventually will change to IPAH, APAH. It's because over time as the community grows, we want to make sure that we are a little bit more all encompassing, and where trainer is a great word to use, and there's a lot of great trainers out there. Handler is a little bit more generalized on what that could be. So we eventually going to change that title as of like net 2021 to IPAH, so IPAH instead.
What was your first experience with being a pup?
It all happened very quickly. So I was part of I still am. I'm a furry. I've been a furry for a long time. And I went to cons and stuff. And I know I had a friend at one point. This is my first very slight interaction, who had a rubber hood, like a really, really pretty pup hood. And I was just really curious. And I said, I just kind of want to like try this on and wear it. Now, I was not into like any gear, like zero. So I was like, I had my fursuit and I was good. So like, that's just what it is. That's just how I rolled at that point. So we were at this party, we were drinking. I said, hey, can I wear this hood? So I put it on and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm like, this is really nice. So I was like, okay, this is cool. I, ran around, had some drinks, good time. And that was the end of it. So moving forward, I saw Mrs. Lillian and Tyke's video about pup play, which was a beautiful video. They live in Portland now. And it talked a little bit more about the pup play. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. Going a couple years forward from that, I eventually got to a point where I moved to Vancouver. I was with someone at the time. I had interest in pup, but I was kind of like, oh, okay. They had interest, but they were like, oh, okay. But then we found out there was this place called the Vancouver's Pups and Handlers contest, weekend, sorry. It was a Vancouver Paul group, so Van Paul. They had meetings and moshes every month. He was like, do you want to go? And you could be like my handler. And I was like, okay, sure. Let's just give it a go. So I came rolling up in my like long jacket, looking like Gucci, like GQ type looking, like totally like out of the scope, sitting there. I had like no gear. So I'm talking like I'm dressed in the nine type thing, as I did because I was like into that dress casual wear. So I'm like, hey, what's up? And I'm like talking to people and I'm like, this is actually kind of cool. I'm seeing puppies playing on the mats. I was talking to friends. I had a couple beers. So I eventually got comfortable enough. I just like kind of like, throwing some toys for the pups. And I'm like, that's cool. And then one of the other guys came up and saying, are you sure you like want to handle? You don't want to get on the mats? And I'm like, I don't know. A couple weeks, like literally like a month later, I decided to just give it a go. And I started hanging out with a couple of pups in the local community. And then I gave it a run and just got on the mats and boom. A year later, I became a title holder or 6 months later, 8 months later, something. And then here we are now.
And now you have the scrapyard. How did that happen?
My friend, his name's Never Wolf, also known as Pup Scraps, is a really talented furry artist. And we hung out a lot of times. We first met at Rainforest, which was a furry convention that existed in Seattle, Washington. He still currently lives where he does in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. We met up there like years ago, and we've been friends ever since. So then as I was getting into the community and, doing my events and getting really involved, I started noticing that he started getting involved in the pup community and started doing prototypes of these hoods. And I'm like, that's really interesting. Can we talk a little bit more about it? So after looking at his stuff, I'm like, you know what? You got something there. This is a very awesome design and idea, and it really could benefit the community for people who might want this type of style of hood. So after some talking and deliberating on the possibility, we just said, hey, let's make this into a company. So I worked with him over and over. We did a couple more prototypes, and then we created Scrapyard Leather. And we debuted at IPAH a year ago. So we're really young in our infancy. It was a very successful weekend. We sold all of our inventory. We got like 22 commissions custom after we left that they wanted to be done. And then we grew more and more, like 25%, 30, 50%. And then by the time this year we are now, we have definitely grown where we have to sometimes limit the amount of, we actually do have to limit the amount of commissions we can take because the demand is higher than the supply. We just can't move as fast because everything is hand stitched, handcrafted entirely. Nothing is manufactured. Everything is done completely. And the leather is 100%, which we're doing right now. It's just the leather parts are completely 100% authentic, nice high grade leather. So,
Are we going to see you on Shark Tank?
yeah, right. I love that show, by the way. Oh my God, I would love to go on it just to be that guy, just to have fun. And they'll be like, I just like to see the look on their faces.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good business. No, but I mean, it would be amazing if I could do that, but probably not, unfortunately.
Okay.
I know, it's disappoint.
So here we are during a global pandemic. How are pups handling this? What are they doing to stay connected and be pups? I found a new online community called Pup Space.
Oh, Pup Space? Yes,
Mhm.
that is very new. Yeah, it's was it Grokio or
Yes, and
yeah,
I did create an account, and I think it's really well done.
yeah,
And
it is.
unlike other typical men for men communities,
What do you mean? Which ones? No, I'm kidding.
yeah,
Just joking.
yeah, I won't name
Call
them,
out. No, I'm kidding. But yeah,
but this site is less focused on sex connections
it's
and
not.
really more focused on community. It's more interactive. People are actually talking, and you can also see who's nearby if you did want to try and meet somebody.
Yes, it has everything. It has location abilities where you can definitely put yourself and then you can find out who's in your immediate area. It has a section for who's just online. So you could end up talking to someone like I was talking to some pups in Scotland one time, just out of the randomness. And yeah, it has an ability where you can put your consensual preferences, how you identify. Are you there just to chat or not? Do you just want to socialize? What community groups, and so forth, etc. It's not like the typical some sites that's focused strictly on let's just kind of like bump uglies. Let's use an old term. I could throw all the old terms out too if I want, but it's a good platform. It's very easy to run. There's a furry one too called Furzu that's by the same company that
Oh.
got adopted in, which also is for furries. If you go to that company, they have those two as well. But how we're handling it, because you were talking about that more specifically. PupSpace and other avenues of communication, like those type of platforms are definitely great avenues to kind of reach out and chat. But what Pups and Handlers and what the general pet community over and pup community has been doing generally to keep connected is there's a couple sources. One, again, if you talk to your local communities, there's a lot of them that are doing virtual moshes, i.e., meaning they go on Zoom chats or they go on a Twitch stream and they have general conversations. Zoom has been very popular lately, and they would just all get together and they'll just chat and just have a general conversation. And they might put their pup gear on or their with their whatever pet they are and what they identify as, and just kind of chat and pretend that they're just kind of like if they were there. There's been bigger events that people have been throwing. Our current title holders, Pup Sirius and Handler David, got together and created the Secret Talent of Pets. It had 2 runs so far, but essentially it was an international contest where people showed their talent. And then they would be judged by a panel of judges. So 5 beginning and then 5 for the final. And then the winner actually won big prizes. And they got things from like Scrapyard Leather, from like really big companies from different parts of the world, like some of the Eagles, some like things from like Mr. S, some rough stuff. And it was a really fun way because people could tune in to Twitch or whatever platform they were on or the website in general and watch this like thing. It's like almost like American Got Talent, but for pets. That's essentially what it was. And you could watch this and have a really fun time watching people and see all the amazing talent that people had. And then it was just exciting. And then you could vote for your fan favorite that could win a prize at the end live, which was really cool. And we coordinate this. Our guy was from Amsterdam. The person building it was from Maine. We had one guy from Mexico. We had people from Austria, Germany. We had title holders and people from, I think, 15 countries putting this together. all at the same time. So you can imagine the logistics of that.
Wow. Who put it on? How would you find this link?
Secret Talent of Pets with an S.org is the website. And you can watch the videos of the previous contestants for the second round. And hopefully they'll do another one in the future. So essentially, going back to that question overall, it's just that people have found, it's been amazing, actually, I think companies and just the world in general as a whole. One thing I think we're blessed of is that people who are willing to make it happen can make it happen. And we're willing to become innovative. And innovation is key. No matter what you do in life, I believe that wholeheartedly. And people have found really smart ways of using web and internet to kind of like reach out to the broader communities, like the virtual matches, the contests, there's furries have DJ nights at night where they'll actually get DJs from all over, and they'll DJ from like 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. at night, and you can drink and just listen to the people and then talk on Twitch. But like, there's so many things, but that's how they've been essentially interacting and trying to show that, hey, we're here and we care, your family. So join us.
Yeah. It's a very welcoming, loving community.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you want people to know?
I would say, again, just generally, if you're ever interested in the pup pet community, as I said before, please don't hesitate to reach out to any local paw groups, reach out to any maybe title holders or friends that you might have. The community is very welcoming. We welcome, again, like I said, everyone, no matter what. So please don't be shy. We're here for you. And then hopefully when events grow and we are able to go back without worrying about the pandemic and stuff too, you can join us. And then for myself, I would just like to say that I'm very blessed to be part of the pet community, the pup community, and just the LGBTQ community as a whole. And just please be safe out there. And just know that you're not alone. And if you ever need anything, please reach out to people and your friends. You're not in this by yourself.
Pup Kona, thank you very much for being on Sexual Heroes today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
For information with links about a guest appearing on Sexual Heroes, visit the show notes at sexualheroes.com or on your favorite podcast app. And while you're there, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. You can follow and message me on Twitter at Robert Black XXX and on Facebook at Real Robert Black. Thanks for listening.